Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. Cameras at a vote counting center in a major swing county in Nevada went dark overnight. Officials say no one entered the ballot room during the time, but questions remain. What do midterm results show us thus far? Is the Republican Party out of touch or not doing enough? A new take on conservatism from a senior journalist at The Federalist. 3 days after the midterms, Biden's student loan cancellation program comes to a halt. What the White House says and why a court ruled it illegal. A woman who consented to cross-sex surgery at 15 years old plans to sue the doctors who removed her breasts. Her attorney says the procedure was illegal. And heart injuries in many people who got their third COVID vaccine. That's what researchers in Switzerland say they found. We hear from a cardiologist who says the findings could significantly impact the general population. Over in Nevada, election officials are still counting the ballots, but cameras at the vote counting center in a key county went dark Wednesday night, and it's fueling concerns about election security.
In Washoe County, Nevada, cameras at the vote counting facility stopped broadcasting overnight on Wednesday. The facility is still counting midterm ballots. A spokesperson for the county said that the live stream app that provides the feeds lost connection with the cameras at around 11:30 p.m. on Wednesday. All staff members left for the night about an hour before the issue, and none returned until 7 a.m. the next day. Officials said they restored the connection just before 8 a.m. on Thursday. The Washoe County Security Administrator reviewed security cameras at the building. According to the administrator, no one entered the ballot room or registrar's office while the live feeds were cut off. Washoe County is Nevada's second most populous county, with close to 500,000 residents. It includes the city of Reno. County officials are now suggesting that in the future they will look for a solution to prevent software disruptions, or simply not offer a courtesy live stream feed. Vote counting in Nevada could take days. As of Friday evening, Republican Joe Lombardo is leading Democratic incumbent Steve Sisolak in the race for governor, and Republican Adam Laxalt is leading Democratic incumbent Catherine Masto in the race for senator. Results from Arizona and Alaska are also too early to call. Reporting by Allison Lee, NTD News.
And Nevada's largest county still has more than 50,000 ballots to count as of today, according to Clark County's top election official. That number is for mail-in ballots. About 30% of those ballots were expected to be tabulated today. The rest are being inspected by the county's counting board, which verifies signatures and does other work. After that chunk is processed, the votes will be tabulated. Mail-in ballots that are postmarked on or before Election Day must be counted as long as they're received by 5 p.m. on Saturday, per state law. Voters also have until November 15th to cure or fix an issue with their ballot. Clark County must send the election results to the Nevada Secretary of State's office on or before November 17th. And as we all watch closely while the vote count continues, pundits and politicians are drawing lessons from the election's outcomes. Are there any blind spots? What's the bigger picture? Earlier today, I spoke with a senior editor at The Federalist, John Daniel Davidson, who suggests the outcome and the logic behind it may not be quite what you think. John Daniel Davidson, welcome to our show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Now, a popular perspective circulating about the midterms is that abortion motivated young people to vote, which helped stop a red wave. But you're saying that Republicans could have won more seats with a stronger conservative stance. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, the idea that there wasn't a red wave, I don't think is quite right because there were multiple red waves. They were just localized to certain states. You look at a state like Florida, which everybody talked about, but also in Texas, also in a few other places. The Republicans did very well. And there was one thing that they had in common. They had governors and state legislatures that took bold action and passed anti-abortion legislation after the Dobbs decision came out. And that was something, of course, the conventional wisdom and the establishment media thought, Dobbs is going to wipe out Republican gains in the midterms. It's going to, cause a lot of Democrat voters to come out. And that did happen in certain places. But in key red states, you saw voters responding to bold, ambitious leadership political leaders who were willing to stand by their convictions on abortion and actually put their money where their mouth was and pass laws, as opposed to a lot of candidates that took the Beltway consultants' advice and tried to kind of dodge the issue or didn't want to be pinned down on it. And I think, of course, of Michigan, a state where Republicans got totally wiped out, and they allowed the Democrats to run this referendum without putting forward any vision or any plan for abortion regulation of their own in that state. So they sort of accepted the left's terms on the issue.
Now, you've said that conservatives should stop thinking of themselves as conservatives and start thinking of themselves, as radicals, restorationists, and counter-revolutionaries. Could you dig into that a little more?
Well, that goes back to what I was saying about having a vision and getting comfortable with wielding power, not always being so defensive. Most of the victories of the conservative movement, certainly over the past 30 years, have been defensive victories. And even the Dobbs decision, as a Supreme Court decision sort of handed down from on high, was a defensive victory. It didn't end abortion. It didn't even follow through on its own internal constitutional logic, which is that the 14th Amendment should obviously protect the unborn as well. So my argument is that the conservatives have too long stayed in this defensive crouch, and we need to start thinking of ourselves not as trying to stop the forward progress of history, but as fighting back with a positive message, a bold action, and a plan for how to govern in the American interest and use political power to advance the common good.
The conservative doctrine errs on the side of less government control, but this approach may necessitate government intervention. What do you say to concerns about government overreach?
Yeah, my response to that might be what Abraham Lincoln's response was during the Civil War, when they said, well, President Lincoln, aren't you worried about this executive overreach? Well, we'll worry about that after we've won the war, right? We are in a fight for the republic right now. And if we do not beat the left and we do not dismantle the tyranny machine that the left has been building for 100 years, we won't have a republic. And it won't matter whether or not we've expanded government too much or conservatives have been too liberal in their use of government power. As far as I'm concerned, those are academic questions at this point. We have got to save the country. And so we need to do whatever we have to do to save the country. We are facing an opposition that wants to transform America and destroy the republic, destroy the Constitution. If we want to save any of those things, then we can't have qualms at this point about wielding power. First, you have to win it, and then you have to wield it. And we've got to get comfortable with that.
Conservatives in the U.S. today tend to have more skepticism about how well their democracy is functioning. How can a reimagined conservative movement overcome this, do you think?
One of the ways that we can overcome it is by getting a Republican leadership class that actually respects and responds to the concerns of working class, normal American people. The Republican Party is becoming a party of the working class, as the Democratic coalition is very clearly now a coalition mostly of college-educated, urban-dwelling, upper-middle-class people. Republicans have got to get a vision that actually improves the lives of working-class Americans. Mitch McConnell very pointedly did not want Republicans to run on an agenda in the midterms. It was enough, in his view, to just run against Democrats, to just run against Joe Biden. Kevin McCarthy was much the same. That's not going to cut it anymore. They need a positive vision for the future for voters to latch onto.
All right. Thank you so much, John Daniel Davidson, senior editor at The Federalist. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
And former President Donald Trump will announce next Tuesday that he's running for president. That's according to one of his advisors, Jason Miller. Some Republicans have called on him to hold off due to the pending Georgia Senate runoff election. Miller told Steve Bannon's War Room today that it's going to be, quote, a very professional, very buttoned-up announcement. Miller added that Trump told him there doesn't need to be any question about his plans. Trump has often suggested he'd run again, but this latest statement from Miller is the most explicit one yet about a possible 2024 White House bid. Trump hasn't issued a public comment on Miller's confirmation. And the November election was the most expensive midterm election ever. According to data compiled by Open Secrets, state and federal level campaigns spent nearly $17 billion. The host of NTD's The Nation Speaks, Cindy Drucker, spoke with two experts on election campaigns to learn more about political spending.
Adam Goodman is a veteran political strategist of 4 decades and currently a consultant at Ballard & Associates. During an interview with NTD, he elaborated on what he's noticed in campaign ads over the years.
There are 4 emotions that drive all of life as well as campaign ads: love, hate, fear, and hope. Unfortunately, these days, most of it is about fear and hate as opposed to love and hope.
According to Open Secrets, federal candidates and political committees spent $8.9 billion this midterm. The Senate race in Nevada was one of the top 10 most expensive races in 2022. Goodman put into context how much political campaigns cost.
To place a 30-second ad on 60 Minutes in Reno costs you about $12,000 if you do it from the campaign. If you do it from a super PAC, which is one of the outside groups, it's $150,000. And they're already saying that in Reno, in that relatively small to mid-sized media market, $25 million or more will be spent in the U.S. Senate seat campaign alone. That's enough. In past days, you'd say, God, if I had $25 million, I could buy a television station in Reno.
Dan McMillan is the founder and executive director of Save Democracy in America, a nonpartisan group that seeks to change how election campaigns raise money. He explains to NTD that big industries are donating to both major parties, and the pharmaceutical industry is among the top donors.
Nowadays, I think it's almost best to think of it as protection money, like, mob extortion. It gives them a defense against what the political system might do to them.
McMillan says that in recent years, donations under $200 have grown a lot, but they're still only 20% of the total. And they tend to go overwhelmingly to a few high-profile candidates like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump.
Overwhelmingly, it is from millionaires, especially even more billionaires, so-called mega donors, corporations, industry pressure groups. And we don't know how much, but in 2020, at least $1 billion out of the $14.4 billion total was dark money. Well, we don't even know who the donors are, and that's a growing problem.
You can watch the full interview with Adam Goodman and Dan McMillan on NTD's The Nation Speaks this Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time.
President Biden's been touting his student loan cancellation program as relief for Americans. But starting today, the program is no longer taking applications. NTD's Iris Tao has more on what's going on.
This year, the Biden administration has stopped taking applications for a student loan cancellation program. That's after a court ruled on Thursday evening that Biden's plan was illegal. And now on the application website, the original form is down and a note is up saying past applications will be put on hold while the administration seeks to overturn court orders. In mid-October, Biden announced his plan to cancel up to $20,000 worth of student debt for millions of borrowers. And here's Biden touting it while campaigning for Democrats days before the midterms.
This is a game changer for so many people. And folks, despite what Republican officials say, we can afford the student loan program.
It's also among the first things Biden brought up in a speech right after the election.
And I especially want to thank the young people of this nation who, I'm told, I haven't seen the numbers, voted historic numbers again. They voted to continue addressing the climate crisis, gun violence, their personal rights and freedoms, and the student debt relief.
The Thursday block comes after a federal judge in Texas rejected Biden's executive action, writing in his 26-page ruling, quote, "In this country, we're not ruled by an all-powerful executive with a pen and a phone." A separate court order put the program on hold weeks ago, but the administration still encouraged borrowers to keep applying regardless, as Biden previously vowed.
Fighting them in court, we're not letting them get away with it.
After the latest legal setback, the White House says it strongly disagreed with the decision, adding the Justice Department is appealing it. So far, some 26 million people have applied for debt cancellation, and 16 million requests have been approved. But now all they can do is to wait, as it could take months for the court to issue a final ruling on if they're getting anything. Reporting by Iris Tao, NTD News.
Should doctors be held accountable for performing cross-sex procedures on consenting adolescents? One woman who underwent a procedure now plans to sue the hospital and the doctors involved. NTD's Arlene Richards has that story.
At a young age, Chloe Cole agreed to let a gender transition surgeon perform a cross-sex procedure on her body, a life-altering decision she now deeply regrets.
Yes. When I was 15 years old, I had a double mastectomy. They removed both of my breasts.
At 12 years old, Cole and her parents trusted the doctors when they told her that she could become a different sex.
From then on, I was basically affirmed in my gender identity without any questioning from any medical professionals, and they pushed transitioning as the way to treat gender dysphoria.
On Thursday, Cole and her attorney appeared on Fox News to announce her intent to sue the medical professionals involved.
Yes. I want to be able to create a precedent for other people who have been in my situation to find justice themselves.
Cole's attorney said the procedure was illegal.
Our website at libertycenter.org has the letter, very detailed letter that details all of the medical symptoms that Chloe has and the medical malpractice and, frankly, mutilation that was perpetrated by these medical professionals.
Cole said she will never get back what she's lost.
I don't even know if, because I was put on puberty blockers and testosterone at only 13 years old, I don't know if I'll even be able to conceive a child naturally.
Arlene Richards, NTD News, New York.
And researchers in Switzerland found that 1 in every 35 people who get a third COVID shot suffer from heart damage. We spoke with a cardiologist who says those damages can have long-lasting effects and can even be fatal.
Researchers at the University of Basel in Switzerland tested the cardiac troponin levels of almost 800 people who got their third COVID-19 vaccine. Measuring those levels is a standard practice for assessing heart damage. They found that 2.8%, or around 1 in every 35 people, had higher cardiac troponin levels. They say this indicates heart damage. The research found that the levels were back to normal after 4 days. We spoke with cardiologist Dr. Peter McCullough, who says cardiac troponin levels usually go back to normal after 4 days, even after serious heart injuries.
4 days is the standard elevation for a heart attack. So any damage to the heart takes several days to occur, and then the scar formation occurs later on, and then the scar could be the basis for a future cardiac arrest. And we've seen alarming case reports of young individuals dying suddenly with no other explanation.
However, Dr. McCullough says even if such a scar forms, that can take time, and the effects of that might only be felt later on.
This indicates that a large number of individuals who have taken the third dose have sustained heart injury, and many don't know about it.
The leader of the study conducted in Switzerland says the findings shouldn't be ignored, but we also shouldn't place too much importance on them. McCullough disagrees.
When it comes to safety, we should never minimize safety signals. We should never just hand wave them away. That's irresponsible. All of this is very alarming. We should never be using a vaccine that could possibly cause even one case of fatal cardiac damage.
As of November 1st, around 130,000 people got a booster every day on a 7-day average in the U.S. Reporting by Arian Pastar, NTD News.
And on Twitter, Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced that Texas has sent off its 300th bus of illegal immigrants. And that bus is headed for Chicago. Since April, Texas has bused about 13,000 illegal border crossers to so-called sanctuary cities. That's according to a statement released from Abbott's office on November 4th. Washington, D.C., New York City, and Illinois have all declared states of emergency after receiving busloads of illegal immigrants. The Attorney General of Washington, D.C. is investigating whether Abbott might have misled the illegal immigrants into getting onto the buses. But Abbott has further tweeted that Texas will continue taking unprecedented action to relieve the overwhelmed border communities. In fiscal year 2022, a record-breaking 2 million people illegally crossed the U.S.-Mexico border. And if you have any news tips or feedback for our show, remember you can always email us at eveningnews@ntd.com.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.